April 29th, 2023. A 15-year-old walks onto a pitch for Barcelona's first team. Youngest player in the club's history. Before he's kicked a single senior ball, journalists are already writing the same sentence. The next Messi. That sentence has killed careers before. It's about to test this one. Here's what you're going to watch. A kid gets handed the heaviest label in football at the worst possible age to carry it. And instead of collapsing under it or fighting it, he just ignores it. Not defiantly, structurally, like the label never landed on him at all. Why does that matter? Because almost nobody survives that label. And the ones who don't survive it tell you exactly what should have happened to Yamal. Start with Freddie Adu, 2004. 14 years old, signed by DC United, called the next Pelé before he'd played a professional minute. Nike signed him, Sports Illustrated put him on the cover. By his mid-20s, he was bouncing between clubs nobody outside football could name. The talent was real. The weight of the sentence wasn't survivable. That's the pattern sports psychologists actually study. Not failure of skill, failure under manufactured comparison. You're not just playing football anymore. You're auditioning to replace someone. Now watch what happens next with Yamal, because this is where it gets strange. July 9th, 2024. Euro 2024 semifinal. Spain against France, in Munich. Yamal is 16. He cuts inside from the right, bends a shot into the far corner, and he is the youngest goal scorer in European Championship history. Spain wins 2-1, goes on to beat England 2-1 in the final in Berlin. The label doesn't fade after that. It gets louder. Next Messi. Next Ballon d'Or. Next everything. Here's the twist most people miss. The pressure was never really on Yamal to become someone else. The pressure was on everyone watching to find a frame that made sense of what they were seeing. Adults needed the comparison more than the 16-year-old did. Because Yamal never played like a kid trying to be Messi. He played like a kid who'd already decided who he was and was mildly confused why anyone needed a second name for it. That's the mechanism, not resilience. Not maturity beyond his years, whatever that phrase is supposed to mean. A refusal to accept the premise of the question in the first place. Comment the number. How many years was Lionel Messi at Barcelona before he won his first Ballon d'Or? Type it below before you keep watching. Because here's where the story stops being about comparison and starts being about arrival. July 19th, 2026. World Cup Final. East Rutherford, New Jersey. Spain against Argentina. Against Messi himself, in what's being called his final World Cup match. 90 minutes, goalless. In the 66th minute, Yamal delivers the cross that nearly breaks the deadlock, forcing a save from Emiliano Martinez. But the game grinds into extra time. And that's where the shift happens. Argentina goes down to 10 men, after Enzo Fernandez's second yellow card deep into stoppage time. Then, in the 106th minute, off the bench, Ferran Torres finishes from close range. Spain 1, Argentina 0. Spain's second World Cup title, 16 years after their first in 2010. Messi walks off a World Cup final for what may be the last time, without the trophy. Yamal walks off a world champion, at 19. 6 days earlier, on July 13th, he'd turned 19. 6 days later, he's a world champion. Not the next anyone, not an heir, a champion, on his own timeline. Before the comparison even had time to resolve itself. That's the part that should unsettle you if you've been following football long enough to remember Freddie Adu's Sports Illustrated cover. The label was supposed to be a weight. For Yamal, it barely registered as one. Think about what that actually means. Every young player who's ever been called the next someone was handed an identity to live up to before they'd built their own. Most spend years fighting that ghost. Some never escape it. Yamal simply never engaged. He didn't reject the comparison loudly. He didn't give interviews about pressure or expectation. He just kept doing things that made the comparison look small and slightly outdated. By 19, he wasn't chasing Messi's career. He was already standing somewhere Messi's career took decades to reach. That's not a story about talent. Plenty of 15-year-old debutants had talent. It's a story about what happens when a kid never accepts the terms other people set for his identity and just builds his own instead. Quietly, on the pitch. One final at a time. So next time somebody hands a teenager a legend's name like it's a compliment, watch closely. Watch whether the kid tries to live up to it, or whether, like Yamal, he simply keeps playing until the name stops making sense. They gave him a legend's name, he made the world remember his own. Subscribe for more stories about the mind behind football.